What's up, guys? We are back with another Boss Fight Studio review, and we are taking a look at probably one of my most anticipated new lines for the year. This came out of just absolute left field, and in many ways is a huge nostalgia trip for me, despite the fact that this has nothing nostalgic to it. This just seems like something that I might have owned as a kid, which really draws me in. So we're taking a look at Wave 1 of Boss Fight's Saurozoic Warriors, which Dinosaur men, they kind of sell themselves, right? So we got 4 figures to talk about. We've got Triax Skiver, and I have no idea if I'm saying these names correctly or not, but here we are. We've got Asus, which is like a punk stegosaurus, and he's orange, so I'm already on board for that. We've got a Ceratopsian guard here, so we've got an army builder in Wave 1. And then easily my most anticipated figure in this wave is this blue and pink Brachiosaurus guy, Range Brachion. It just looks cool. And they also come in really cool packaging. They all have character-specific artwork, the whole 9 yards. So you've got them in these big window boxes. You've got the figure there in the window. You've got the Saurozoic logo down there on the bottom. Nameplate down there too, so you know who you're dealing with. One side has another window. The other side has some really awesome character-specific artwork for each figure. And then the back of the boxes give us a small product shot of the figure. You've got bios for each character, and then you get cross-sell for the wave. So a lot of cool stuff going on here just at face value. So yeah, let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, Saurozoic Warriors, Wave 1 from Boss Fight Studio. And yeah, I mean, my initial expectation of this being a really cool line, it's something that I've definitely been looking forward to this year, is pretty much come to fruition, because, I mean, these are just something that like jumped out of my childhood. And again, they aren't something that jumped out of my childhood. They are a new property. But there's no doubt in my mind that I could have bought these when I was a kid, you know, at Toys R Us. Like, there's no doubt that they would have not been at home with, like, Turtles and Toxic Crusaders and all that kind of stuff. All of the weird, bright, vibrant toys from when I was a kid. Like, this is that. Like, that kind of thing just made now, which, frankly, seems kind of nuts in today's toy market. But I'm pretty excited for these. They do seem to be pretty much everything that I thought they were going to be. So let's just run through all of them. They're all relatively the same when it comes to articulation. So we'll just pick one of them. They're all essentially the same, and any kind of little quirks that they have, we'll talk about on an individual basis. So let's use the Ceratopsian guard as our guinea pig, and then we'll go from there. So as far as moving these guys around, they are fairly normal. If you're familiar with boss fight stuff, like, you kind of know what to expect. They're very much par for the course with a lot of modern action figure lines. Nothing really missing here, I don't think. So we've got a head that can look up. He can look down really good. The neck also moves. You've got really good tilt side to side. Full rotation. There is also an opening jaw, so you can pop that mouth open. Arms out at the shoulders. You can swivel, of course. We've got single jointed 90-degree swiveling elbows. You've got hinges at the wrist, and you've got rotation there, of course. The torsos are ball pegs, so it's like a single torso. You can go backwards and forwards a little bit, side to side, and it's your rotation point. This guy is maybe a little bit more limited than others because he also has that big armor plate. So some of the other figures, like the Range Brachion, for example, has a lot more range at the waist, surprising amount of range. So we'll talk about that when we get to him. Legs out, they kick forward, they go backwards a little bit. You do have a thigh twist up there. We've got single jointed knees. There is definitely some limitation at the knees, and then you do have rotation. And then you've got, you know, standard stuff down at the ankles. You've got hinge, you've got rocker, all that good stuff down there. Rocker is actually really nice, and the hinges are pretty decent as well. So fairly normal stuff, like nothing crazy. They're not reinventing the wheel when it comes to these, but they also are making it so that they very much will fit in with pretty much anything else you're actively buying these days. But let's not kid ourselves. You know, obviously the main focus for this line is just what they are and how they look. And, you know, in just a general sense, I think Boss Fight absolutely nailed it on a number of levels. Not only are they very much their own thing, maybe pulling some inspiration from something like Dinosaurs in some ways. I mean, I don't know that it's impossible to not be influenced by that, because Dinosaur men, in terms of, you know, nostalgic style of toy line. But these are very much their own thing. They have their own look and feel. They very much remind me of Masters figures in some ways. And of course, they just look like they jumped right out of the early 90s. I mean, all of these bright, vibrant, fluorescent colors. This, again, just looks like something that I might have had, well, not might, definitely would have had as a kid. And this guy in particular, the Ceratopsian guard, he's probably, and I don't say this in a negative way, probably the most generic of the bunch, because he's the army builder. So I expect to, probably end up with a couple of these down the road just to have like a little squad or something. But even this figure does look really, really awesome. These greens are bright and vibrant. There's nice shading on the actual flesh parts. There's good sculpture all over. So all of the actual flesh is textured. It does have like a scaliness to it. You've got these metallic armor bits that are all textured and all have this crazy like gold copper look, which I'm really happy with that metallic. It's super shiny. But even beyond that, it's just the color palette in general. You've got a green Ceratops man with pink accents. The pink on these figures is really throwing me for a loop in the best way possible. And then you've got, like these orange hits. You've got this bright green skin with all of this shading all over it. And it's just a cool looking figure. We could probably start and stop the review with these are cool. Dinosaur men, just buy them. Like they are so different from anything else you're going to have on your shelf right now. And maybe that's another big factor in terms of why I'm so happy with these. They just are so different right now. I mean, I know there's obviously another Dinosaur line Kickstarter going at the moment, but even those are not the same kind of thing. Those are more on the Mythic Legion side of things. This is very much something that, and don't take this to be in any way a negative, this feels like a toy. Like, it's not something that feels like you have to be careful with it. This feels like a toy, something you can play with. And I mean that in the best way possible. I really like the feel, the sizing, the color, the sculpt, all of it. It's just so cool. And they all come with some pretty solid accessories too. This guy in particular, he's got this spear. So it's got storage on the back. And weapon storage is definitely a factor with these figures. I love weapon storage on the figures, and they all have a lot. So you've got this big spear with more of those pink accents. He's got a sidearm pistol. A pink gun. I mean, obviously, this is definitely something that looks like it would have been in the 90s or something like that. He's got a knife. Down here, a pink knife, because why not? You got a match. And then he's got these little, like, smoke canister grenades. I'm not really sure if there's a place that these can go on him or not, but everything else, I mean, obviously just came right off of him, so you do have weapon storage. And then he's got the mask that you previously saw when it comes to a way to change him up. And this thing just sort of sits over top of him. It actually just is super easy to put on. You just sort of pop it on his head, and then he's good to go, just like this. Like some sort of like a shock trooper almost, where he's going to go in and like smoke out his enemies. That's why he's got the smoke canisters, and he's got like the gas mask so that he won't be affected by his warmongering ways or whatever you're doing with him. So, I mean, it's just like a first figure. This guy is really, really cool, but even so, he's still just like an army builder, and yet he comes with all of this stuff, all of these paint details, all of this great sculpt, and really is a set point for where this line is going to go if the army builders are already this detailed. Next up, we've got Triax Skiver, and this is where we start the named figure. So we've got a Triceratops guy. He seems to share some parts with our Ceratopsian guard, which makes sense. They're very similar style of Dino men, but they've gone in a very different direction here with the Triceratops head, and I absolutely love this head sculpt. It looks great. He's got this like nice furrowed brow. Size on it is really good. That's one thing I really like. These heads are not super massive for them being dinosaur guys, but they're just big enough that they kind of take prominence and they really draw your attention. He's got this nice scar over here on his eye. He also features the opening jaw, but he's got different kind of armor. It's similar to the Ceratopsian guard, but it's not the same. So he's got this purple and he's got this silver paint job on a very similar kind of sculpt, but there's still quite a few differences to it. He's got the little loincloth down there. He's got some asymmetry going on with his like bandage wrap down here versus the actual armor. More weapon storage. Almost all of his weapons can be stored on him as well. Well, all of his weapons can. He also features some little grenades, just like the Ceratopsian does. He's got more asymmetry with this spiked shoulder pad over here, and he also features a different shade of green. So he's not exactly the same. Slightly less dark shading on him, but he's similar, just in a sort of a different way at the same time. And then as far as what he comes with weaponry, he also features the sort of clasp on the back for his larger weapon. So he's got this big battle axe, just black and silver. We've got another one of these guns. So you've got this is the same sidearm pistol that the Ceratopsian comes with, just in a different color scheme. He features a revolver, though, which is, for some reason, this is really funny to me, just the fact that this Dino Man has an actual revolver. Why not? And then he also has the knife. His colors are a little bit more mundane on the weapon side. You know, you can't beat a pink knife, I don't think. And then he also includes the 2 little smoke grenade canisters, which again, I don't think he really has any good storage for those either, but he can store 4 weapons on him at any given time. And I mean, I've said it until I'm red in the face. I love weapon storage on a figure, just so I don't have to put stuff in bins. I do love having everything on a figure. But this guy looks awesome. I'm really happy with the coloring on him. It's again another instance of him being super bright, super vibrant, and just, you know, looking, feeling, and being an actual toy instead of something that is necessarily meant for a collector. Like, this is something that I do not have any worry about my daughter picking up. I feel like she'll have a blast with these, and I'll get my figure back intact. Now we're moving into the 2 figures that are easily my favorite of the bunch. And I say that in the sense that I'm really happy with this whole wave, but the last 2 figures here are just, they're just cooler to me. This is Asus, and he is quite obviously an orange Stegosaurus. Not only is he one of my favorite colors, but he's also one of my favorite dinosaurs. I love Stegosaurus. I love armored dinosaurs when it comes to that kind of stuff. So if we can get an Ankylosaurus anytime soon, I'll also be very happy. But this guy looks awesome. He's also a very different size too. And we'll do size comparisons with the whole line as well as other figures here shortly. And he does have a few little different hits of articulation. Mostly when it comes to the head, because he does have this sort of like, you know, lurching forward head. He's got this big head and neck system. It's still very similar. There's a little bit less range, but you can also get him sort of crooking his head all the way over to the side, which is also pretty cool. So I think he works fairly well, despite being this sort of squatty Stegosaurus punk. Like the spiked leather jacket vest is really working for me. It just sort of sells the idea of what this guy is. He also has a tail. You do have to put this on. It comes in the package separate. It's on a ball peg. Pretty good range too. Doesn't throw him off or anything like that. He's kind of a chunky guy, so that tail's not going to really get in the way. He still, of course, has the opening jaw here too. His head kind of reminds me of a Skeksis from the Dark Crystal. Not in a bad way, just sort of, I can't not see like the Chamberlain when I look at his face. But this guy is awesome. If it wasn't for the fact that the other figure was a big blue and pink Brachiosaurus, this guy would probably be my favorite. He also features removable shoulder armor here. And then he's got this massive, massive gun. So this is really, really interesting. I was honestly really concerned about whether he was actually going to be able to hold this well. And Boss Fight did something that, I mean, frankly, it just makes perfect sense. The actual handles here are hinged. So you can move them forward and backward to get them to go into his hand versus having to force his hand to go over top of them in a static position. So I thought that was really, really just smart on their part to make that work because, of course, he does have a really wide torso while only having single jointed elbows. So he can only go so far, but they made the gun work in his favor versus having to like carve up the body in some sort of weird way or give him something else entirely because this gun is just awesome. It's got a cool pink and black color scheme. There's a lot of pink in this line, man. There's a lot of pink in this line in just the coolest way possible. It's really great. He's got like this big wooden plank for a gauntlet here. He's got the knuckle duster on his hand. He's got a spiked knuckle duster for his knife here. So he doesn't come with as many accessories, but of course he comes with the biggest accessory of the bunch. And I think this guy is he's just so different from the others that it makes him stand out. Not only has he got a wacky color scheme, he's got a lot more when it comes to sculpted detail because he's got this crazy, plate system that runs all the way down his back. It runs all the way down the tail. And then he's just got all this asymmetry with his armor bits, with his, like his knee pads and things like that. And everything looks just terrific. He's a cool looking figure from start to finish. And I mean, it's hard to pass this up, right? This is a punk Stegosaurus. He's orange, he's blue, he's got pink accents, he's got a crazy mega gun. There's really nothing that I can say bad about this figure. He is fun. And then last but certainly not least, we have my favorite figure in the wave, which honestly, I was really surprised that the Stegosaurus was not my favorite, but it's all about the color scheme and this head and this neck. Something about this just works for me. So this is Range Brachion. He is a blue Brachiosaurus man with super, super bright, vibrant, fluorescent pink pinkish, orangey accents. Like there's definitely not, it's not hot pink. There's there's a kind of an orange in there too. And this guy is just like Asus is so different from the other two. He is so different from the rest. He has such a bright color palette. I can't get over it. And of course it absolutely pops against my orange background because those colors sort of play off each other. But I'm in love with this figure. He is so good. And this is the one I sort of mentioned. He has increased range at the waist. Like he's got a lot more range down here than the others. And he also has a really solid neck. Like you can get him to like look right down because of how his head and neck is structured. So you can make him do this. You can have like him looking down at Mar and Mar looking up at him. His head also does move at the end, so this is independently articulated, and he still has the opening jaw there as well. But this guy looks just tremendous. I'm so happy with him. He's like he looks like a very barbarian kind of guy. He's got kind of like war paint on his head. So like the frill on the top of the head has that outline of pink. He's got like the war paint across the bridge of the nose. He's got a skull on his gauntlet here. He's got a loincloth. So this guy looks like he could have jumped right out of Eternia if they, had a bunch of Dino men. He looks awesome, and I look forward to putting him with He-Man or someone or doing something stupid like that. But the color palette, the sculpt, the size, because he's obviously the tallest figure in the wave. The size on him makes him seem a little bit more substantial. Mar is kind of the chunky one. He is the tall one, and the other two are kind of our average baseline for the line. But this guy's just awesome. So happy with the way he turned out. He's the one I was looking forward to the most for sure. And they absolutely delivered on him. He does come with some pretty solid accessories also. You can see one of them. But he comes with another knife. This is not the same one that Mar comes with, but it's similar, knuckle duster style. So this goes in the sheath on the chest. He comes with a gun. So you've got this hot pink sort of rifle, which looks really good. He can hold it just fine. He doesn't have any storage for it, but you can have him hold it. And then the other weapon he has is this gnarly looking like Reaper's axe almost. So this has like some sort of, it's almost got like what looks like an engine or something on it, some sort of propellant system back there. It's got a skull on the top. It's got this massive blade with nice metallic paint on it, and more of that ever-present pink throughout this line. It's just as tall as the figure is too. It's got some heft to it. You are going to have to sort of play around with balance to get him to hold it correctly and get it on his back correctly, but it's not that big of a challenge. It's just the heaviest weapon in the lines, and it just sort of sits back there. It looks great. I'm so happy with the way he turned out. This is, again, another crazy fun figure that has a wild color palette, a goofy design, and just works. Like it's something else that is a fun toy that I want to play with and I want to mess around with and have no worry about breaking it, because it feels like it was meant to be handled in many ways kind of roughly. Like it's built like a tank. Like he's not going anywhere. Joints are nice and tight and solid, and he also happens to just look amazing. Now, as far as some size comparisons go, we're going to kind of run the gamut here because it's an unknown. This line is new. What are they? How do they stack up? And Motu Origins is the baseline that I'm using here because they are very much in line with Origins. So they're like a 5.5-ish inch line. Range is obviously a little taller. He's a little bit over 6. The Ceratopsian figures do seem to be kind of the baseline. That's why I've only got one of them here. And then Mar is basically 5 inches, but he's also kind of, he's a fat guy, so he's really chunky, and he makes up for a lack of height with some girth. So I'm gonna move this guy aside, and we'll use these two as sort of our guinea pigs, and I'll throw a bunch of other figures in here so you can sort of see how some of this stuff stacks up. So let's move He-Man aside. Here's a Figuarts. Here is Superhero Piccolo. Let's move Piccolo aside. Here is a Hasbro figure. Here's a G.I. Joe Classified. There is Cobra Commander. Got to do a Super 7. So here's a Turtle. These I think are going to work pretty decently. Let's do a different kind of Ultimates though. Let's do Lion-O, so a more 7-inch style figure. So he's definitely a lot taller than the entire line. And of course, by virtue of that, that means Mythic Legions are also going to be quite a bit bigger across the board. And let's do an Awok figure. So there is Pale. And then one more, let's do a really small figure. Let's do a reaction figure, so a 3 3/4, to give you an idea of how they look across a couple different lines. So these guys are definitely going to be sort of in their own little arena. I definitely feel like Motu is, well, at least, not Motu Classics or Masterverse, but Origins, Vintage are definitely going to be the way to go. Vintage toys, vintage Playmates Turtles are going to fit in there really well also, but they maybe aren't going to mesh with some of the larger modern lines. Not easily anyway, but you can always fudge them in. So yeah, overall, these are winners. Like, there's no doubt about it. They are varying degrees of winners. Like, I definitely think that Mar Asus and Range Brachion are the better figures in the line, but that's just my personal preference. It's not because they're technically better. I just think they're cooler. But I believe that Boss Fight has a hit on their hands. I hope they have a hit on their hands, and I hope people like these figures as much as I'm liking them, because they are so much fun. And that's really what it all boils down to with these. These look and feel and seem like actual toys. And I know that sounds stupid because I review toys all the time, but a lot of the toys that I mess around with are not meant to be played with as toys. I feel like these can be that. They can be something that you can play with, you can pose, you can display, and you can let your kid play with them and they're going to come back in perfect shape. They definitely feel like a different kind of figure, something that I haven't necessarily messed with since I was a kid. And for me, that's a very big deal. So that's going to do it for this look at the Boss Fight Studio Saurozoic Warriors Wave 1. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.